Good morning, and thank you for joining us for a Tax Practitioner Board webinar. My name is Anna Miliauskas, and I will be hosting today's webinar. We've created this webinar to connect directly with you. We value your opinion, and today we would like to provide you with an opportunity to raise any questions you may have directly with us. To begin today, I'd like to share some housekeeping rules to enable you to get the most out of this webinar. First of all, you'll notice a range of icons located at the top of your screen. To ask a question, simply click the purple chat icon. Please feel free to send through your questions and comments throughout the presentation, and we will respond to you as we go. Just a note here that questions will be visible to other attendees, so if you have a question that's private in nature, please contact us via our online inquiry form at tpb.gov.au/contact. If we're unable to answer your question today, we will respond to you out of session. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please call Redback support on the number at the bottom of the screen. Following the webinar, we will also be providing a copy of today's presentation and some helpful hyperlinks. We'll send those to you via the email address that you used to register for today's session. I'd like to remind you that today's webinar will count towards your CPE or CPD, and you can claim 1 hour for attending. However, we do not issue attendance certificates. Today, we will talk about who needs to register with the TPB. In particular, we'll look at who we are, who needs to register with us, the definition of a tax agent and BAS service, and why it's important to register with us if you are required to. We'll then go through some scenarios, followed by how to actually register with us. We'll go through the requirements such as qualifications, relevant experience, fitness and propriety, supervision and control, and professional indemnity insurance. We will leave plenty of time at the end of the webinar to answer the questions we receive throughout the session, so please put your questions through via the chat box. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Deborah Anderson. Deborah is a registered tax practitioner with extensive experience as a BAS agent and tax agent. She is a Fellow of the Institute of Public Accountants and a member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors and the National Tax Accountants Association. She specialises in tax and technology for small business, has a Master of Business Administration, and has worked extensively with the Australian Taxation Office on matters relating to tax practitioners and small business. Deborah was appointed to the board in February 2019. Good morning, Deborah.
Good morning, Anna. How are you? And thanks to everyone for joining us today. Joining us also today is Madeline Savos, one of our awesome policy advisors. She'll be on hand to respond to any of your questions that get sent through the chat box throughout the webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to discuss what the TPB actually does and whether or not you as a bookkeeper, payroll or digital service provider need to be registered with us. We'll then go on to how to register with us. So let's get started. I thought I might start with a brief overview of who the TPB are. The Tax Practitioners Board was established in 2010, bringing together 6 state-based taxation boards. We are a government-owned national body created under the Tax Agent Services Act, which we call TASA for short, and we set policies and apply the TASA to provide consumer protection for clients of tax agents and register and regulate tax and VAT agents and tax financial advisors. We are separate and independent from the ATO, which is something that people often don't realise. Whilst we are separate, the TPB and ATO work really closely to strengthen community confidence in the tax system. If you'd like to find out more information about what tax practitioners can expect from us, including your rights and responsibilities, you can take a look at the Tax Practitioner Service Charter available on our website. So what do we do? As mentioned previously, one of our key objectives is to protect the consumers of tax practitioner services. We do this by assisting practitioners to comply with their obligations in the TASA, ensuring practitioners have the necessary skills, experience and personal attributes to be registered, ensuring appropriate professional and ethical standards are being met. We follow up on complaints about practitioners and take action against those that are unregistered. And we educate consumers about the services registered tax practitioners can provide. Before we go further, I thought it might be interesting to take a look at what our current tax practitioner population actually looks like. You can see here from the slide that we have over 77,000 registered tax, BAS and tax financial advisors in Australia. This comprises of 42,000 of tax agents, 19,000 tax financial advisors and almost 16,000 BAS agents. It's worth noting here, though, that actually includes individuals as well as businesses or partnerships. So who needs to register with the TPB? Basically, anybody providing tax agent, BAS agent or tax financial advice services for a fee or other reward must be registered with the TPB. This includes bookkeepers, payroll and digital service providers who perform a service for their clients where there is a tax-related component. When I refer to payroll service providers, I'm talking about those individuals or those entities that process payroll or perform payroll-related functions for clients in order to satisfy the client's relevant tax-related requirements. The performance of a payroll-related function may include assisting in the preparation of a pay event or an update event through single-touch payroll-enabled software. Over the next couple of slides, I'll delve into what the definitions of a tax agent and BAS agent service are. You can see from the slide here that tax agent services are services related to working out or advising about liabilities, obligations or entitlements of clients under taxation law and representing clients in their dealings with the Commissioner of Taxation. That basically means calling the tax office. So where the client, and this is where the client can be reasonably expected to rely on the service to satisfy their liabilities or obligations or to claim entitlements under taxation law. A BAS service, on the other hand, refers to services relating to working out or advising about the liabilities, obligations or entitlements of a client under a BAS provision, or representing the client in their dealings with the Commissioner of Taxation in relation to a BAS provision. Again, where it is reasonable to expect a client will rely on the service to satisfy their liabilities or obligations. So you'll notice a very distinct difference there, that a tax agent is about tax law, and there are a variety of tax laws, whereas a BAS agent is specifically under the BAS provision. So I mentioned previously a fee or other reward. What does that mean? So a fee, amongst other things, is a payment for services. A service is taken to have been provided for a fee, even if the fee for the tax practitioner service is bundled with other fees or other services. So fees can be, a fixed amount, value-based, hourly, or asset-based. A reward is something given or received in return for service, merit, hardship, etc. The phrase or other reward recognises situations where services are provided for a reward other than a financial reward. So, for example, bartering, BAS agent services for goods or other services. A fee or other reward specifically excludes employees who are unregistered, who provide tax practitioner services on behalf of or to their employers for salary, wage or other benefits. Other benefits paid to employees could be, but are not limited to, fringe benefits, commissions, bonuses, incentives, etc. So who doesn't need to register with the TPB? You don't need to register with us if you are an employee or provide in-house services. This means that if you are providing a tax or BAS agent service, but you're earning a salary or a wage, which is not considered a fee or other reward, then you don't need to be registered with the TPB. In saying that, some employees may be required to be registered for the purpose of a company or partnership meeting the sufficient number requirements, but I'll talk about this more later in the presentation. So ultimately, whether you're a bookkeeper, payroll or digital service provider and you need to be registered with the TPB, it needs to be considered on a case-by-case basis. There are no specific or separate legislative provisions relating to whether bookkeepers, payroll or digital service providers need to be registered under the Tax Act. Let's talk more about why you may need to be registered with us. Firstly, it's illegal for any entity, which includes individuals, companies or partnerships, to provide tax practitioner services for a fee or other reward, or to advertise that they will be providing these services if they are not registered with the TPB. The TASA contains significant financial penalties imposed by the Federal Court of Australia for anyone providing these services for a fee or other reward whilst unregistered. So let's have a look at a couple of scenarios, just so we can put it into some kind of context. We have a look at this scenario. Scenario one, we have Mario. And Mario is a payroll service provider and he is not registered with the TPB. He advises one of his clients, Ewan, and Ewan engages Mario for advice on some fringe benefits that he needs to pay an employee. Mario advises Ewan verbally only, and Ewan uses that advice to pay his employee the amount that Mario advised using single touch payroll. So our poll question today, well, we've got two actually, but the first one is, should Mario be registered with the TPB? So I'm just about to launch the poll now. And if you could then go in and vote and tell me whether you think that Mario needs to be registered with the TPB. So that's a yes, a no, or an unsure. So I've just opened the poll. So if you wouldn't mind having a look at that and entering your answer. And I'll give you a few seconds to do that. And here we go. We've got the results from the poll, and we, yes, 85% of people have said yes, Mario does need to be registered with the TPB. Well done, everyone's been paying attention. So even though the advice that Mario was giving was verbal, that makes absolutely no difference. So the key here is that the advice Mario was giving was regarding calculating a fringe benefit amount. It's therefore tax related and it's specific to Ewan's circumstances and means that Mario has to interpret taxation law, so therefore it's a tax service. And he needs to be registered with the TPB. And also because it is reasonable in this situation that Ewan would rely on Mario's advice. Again, those two factors mean that he needs to be registered with the TPB. So let's have a look at another one. We'll have a look at scenario number 2, and I'll just explain that one first. So in this case, we have Sandra, and Sandra's a payroll officer, and she's not registered with the TPB. She's employed by a company, and the company has asked her to provide them with advice on payroll tax and work cover. She prepares their bank recs and does their payroll through single touch payroll and transmits that through to the tax office. So our poll question here is, does Sandra need to be registered with the TPB? Again, we've got yes, no, unsure, feel free to press that. And I will open the polls for you now and give you a few moments. So it's open now. And the question is, does Sandra need to be registered with the TPB? Fantastic. So, interesting results here. We've got quite a mix. We've got 32% say yes, 43% say no, and 24% are unsure. It is a bit of a complicated scenario, this one, but the answer is no. Sandra does not need to be registered with the TPB. And the reason for that is because the services she's providing are not for a fee or reward. They are in-house services. She's receiving a salary or wage from her employer to provide these services. So as you can see, sometimes it's not always as clear-cut, and we do look at every single situation on a case-by-case basis. So if you do need to be registered with the TPB, let's have a look at the options available for registration. And for the purposes of this part of the webinar, I'm going to focus on BAS agent registration. It's important to note that depending on what areas of the tax law you are advising in, registration as a tax agent may be required. And again, if you aren't quite sure, visit our website. It's got so much information on there. So for a BAS agent, there are 3 BAS agent registration options available. First is individual, partnership, or a company. And I'll have a look at these in a bit more detail now. Firstly, for an individual, to be eligible to register as an individual BAS agent, you must be at least 18 years old. You must be a fit and proper person. You must meet the qualification and experience requirements, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail. And you must maintain or be able to maintain professional indemnity insurance that meets the TPB's requirements. If you are applying for a company or a partnership BAS agent registration, you also need to have a sufficient number of registered tax or BAS agents working there so that they can provide supervision and control and ensure that the BAS agent services that the company or partnership are providing are at a competent level. Fit and proper. All registered tax practitioners, including bookkeepers, payroll and digital service providers, must satisfy the fit and proper person requirement. Fit and proper person requirement is an ongoing registration requirement, and it applies to all individual practitioners and each and every partner and director in respect to a partnership and company registration. So what does fit and proper actually mean? Well, when we're deciding whether an individual is a fit and proper person, we look at a number of things. We look at if the person is of good fame, integrity and character. We have a look at whether they've been convicted of a serious taxation offence or an offence involving fraud or dishonesty, whether they're an undischarged bankrupt, whether they've been sentenced to a term of imprisonment, and if they meet their own personal taxation obligations. And personal tax obligations are not just you as an individual, so whether you've lodged your personal individual tax return, but also any related entities. So if you've got a self-managed super fund, company, partnership, trust, all of those, any related where you are a director will be considered. And there are serious consequences for failing to meet the fit and proper requirements, including termination. So on to qualifications and experience. To register as an individual BAS agent, you must meet the qualifications and experience requirements through one of the following 2 options. So the first option is tertiary qualifications in accounting, which we call Item 101. To get through using Item 101, you need to at least have a Certificate 4 in financial services or higher, It could also be a a certificate for in bookkeeping or accounting from a registered training organisation or an equivalent. A board-approved course in basic GST and BAS taxation principles is a must, and you also must have at least 1,400 hours of relevant experience in the past 4 years. The second option, which we call 102, is membership of a professional association. So that it's a little bit similar. So we've still got the Certificate 4 in Financial Services, Bookkeeping or Accounting from a registered training organisation. We've still got the board-approved course in GST or BAS. However, here you must be a voting member of a recognised BAS or tax agent association. And with this one, you need to have at least 1,000 hours of relevant experience in the past 4 years. You must have a primary academic qualification in bookkeeping or accounting at a Cert 4 level or a higher award such as a diploma, an advanced diploma or a degree, providing the higher award, I'm really having problems with awards today, is in the field of bookkeeping or accounting. The qualification must have been obtained from a registered training organisation or an equivalent institution. You must have also completed a board-approved course in the basic GST BAS taxation principles. So if you got your qualification prior to 2000, you will need to make sure that you upgrade that with a GST or BAS qualification. And your board-approved GST BAS course should also include a component which covers the Tax Agent Services Act 2009 or the TASA, including our Code of Professional Conduct. If it doesn't, you must have completed a separate unit covering the TASA. If you haven't done it, or if you're not sure, have a look at the courses and units that have been approved by the board, which again are all on our website using the qualifications check option. So relevant experience. In order to register as an individual BAS agent, you also need to meet the relevant experience requirements. And relevant experience means that you have worked as a registered tax or BAS agent. It means that you've worked under the supervision and control of a registered tax or BAS agent, or you've worked of another kind approved by the TPB. For your experience to count as relevant experience, it must include substantial involvement in one or more BAS services. So most work that we do in preparing books and records of a business so that the business meets its BAS obligations, including PAYG withholding and instalment obligations, is considered relevant experience. Interestingly, work in preparing a return for a state tax obligation such as payroll tax is not included. It's not considered relevant experience. The TPB can also accept, under certain circumstances, work of another kind, provided you demonstrate your experience includes substantial involvement in providing one or more BAS services. Experience accepted under the work of another kind category can include things such as work undertaken as an academic teacher in relevant taxation laws. Now on to supervision and control. One of the key registration requirements for companies and partnerships is that they have a sufficient number of individuals who are registered as tax or BAS agents. And this is to make sure that the provided BAS agent services are provided at a competent standard, and also, very importantly, to carry out supervisory arrangements, making sure that there are enough registered agents to supervise the rest of the staff in a company or partnership. We don't have a set formula for what a sufficient number is. However, we've developed some information sheets that explain our approach to the sufficient number requirement and a range of some of the things that we need to consider and you need to consider too. So as I said, we don't have a set formula, and there's a good reason for that, and that's because every single business, every single, type of client that we deal with is very different. So the sufficient number will vary from entity to entity. To work out the sufficient number for your company or partnership, there's a number of factors that we look at and you should be looking at as well. So things like the size of your business, the type of BAS agent services being provided, the number of qualified and experienced staff, the frequency or what sort of training and development activities you give to your staff, the type and the level of technology or software used within your business, what the supervisory arrangements are in place, that includes things like spot checks, processes, procedures, etc., and any conditions imposed on the entity's registration based on the qualifications and experience of its staff. A wide range of people could make up your sufficient number because it really does depend on your circumstances. It can include the partners, the directors, employees, contractors, or staff under a service trust. Lastly is the professional indemnity insurance. So in order to register as a BAS agent, you must maintain or be able to maintain PI insurance that meets our requirements. Having PI insurance is also an ongoing obligation under the Code of Professional Conduct. If you fail to maintain PI insurance, you will be in breach of the code, and this can result in the termination of your registration. The ways to meet our PI requirements are that you must either hold the PI insurance yourself, or you need to be covered by another registered practitioner's PI insurance. And a good example of that is if you work for a company, if you are covered under the company's PI insurance, then you are deemed to be covered. However, the one thing we do ask is that an employee or a contractor must give us the name of their employee or principal and their registered number so that we can check that you are actually covered. So how do you apply for registration as a BAS agent? Well, the only way to apply is online via our website, which is www.tpb.gov.au. You need to complete the registration form and provide all of the required information, and that will ensure that your application is processed as quickly as possible. You'll also need to pay the application fee and then wait for our decision. Remember, you're not allowed to legally provide BAS agent services for a fee or reward until we have received and approved your application. So to finish our webinar today, we have had quite a number of questions come through the chat box. Thank you very much. Poor Madeline's been very busy over there. So if I just hand over to Madeline, and Madeline, do you want to go through some of the questions that we've had?
Sure, thanks, Deborah. So our first question is, do I have to be a member of a recognised professional association?
No, you don't have to be a member of a professional recognised association. It is only a requirement if you are coming in under Code 102.
Great. And our next question is, will the CPE I complete for my professional association satisfy the TPB's requirements?
Yes. We do try and make it easy for you. So if your CPE satisfies your professional association, it also satisfies us as well.
And the next question we've had come through is, how can I update changes to my contact details?
Oh, good one. Go to our website. So just where you went in to originally registered. You just go in there, update your details, and I'll point out here, one of the things that we do see is people not updating their professional indemnity insurance. So often people think you only have to do it with your annual declaration or your renewal. You actually need to let us know as soon as your professional indemnity insurance runs out and your new one kicks in. So all your details can be updated online on our website.
And the next question is, do CPE hours start from the date you registered, or is it a calendar year?
It's actually from the date that you registered. So it works over a 3-year period of your renewal or your total registration. But we do work in the registration year for the minimum yearly requirement. So it is from registration date to registration date.
Excellent. And the next question is, does the TPB's CPE requirement cater for those who live in a regional area where there are limited CPE activities?
Oh, there are so many CPE activities you can do. I mean, we do have a restriction of 25% on reading, but there are just so many options these days with webinars, podcasts, all of those types of things. So have a look at our website. We do have quite a good list of all the different types of CPE, and I do recommend, it's a really good idea to be a member of a professional association anyway, but they do have some really great resources that can be done online, and also they do hold regional workshops and training sessions as well.
All right, and the next question is, what is the TPB doing to address the problem of people providing tax services when they're not registered with the TPB?
Good question. It's a very hard one, isn't it? Because it's very hard to find people that are doing something that aren't registered with you. So it is a little bit tricky. And we do monitor a whole bunch of places, social media, the internet, etc. We also work very closely with the tax office to try and identify unregistered preparers. But we also rely very heavily on you guys reporting to us if you come across somebody. Often you know about it before we do. So if you do find that somebody is unregistered, please do report it to us. We do look at every single case, every single report that comes through our website. So again, we have a complaints area through the TPB website, and please let us know ASAP and we will look that up and follow it up. Any more?
Yep, more to come. So the next one, how do I gain and demonstrate experience to meet the registration requirements if I am new to the profession, having just obtained the educational qualifications?
So working under a supervised agent, there are a whole range of ways to do that. And in fact, our website has a number of those listed on there that you can go through, but you will need to be supervised, and we do need to get a reference from them.
Excellent. And our next question is, can I ask a client to provide verification of my relevant experience?
Yes, you can ask a client. And obviously, as long as it wasn't providing a bus service unregistered. But if you were an employee, that does count. And if you were doing some bookkeeping under the supervision of a registered agent, yes, you can.
The next question, how do I get my educational qualifications assessed to see if they meet the TPB requirements?
You can go, again, our website is full of some incredible information. If you have a look on there, it does have a list of all of our approved courses on there. If for some reason, we also do a bit of a mix and match as well. So if you are unsure or it doesn't fall into one of those situations that we have specifically mentioned on the website, put it through to us and we will assess it. We do assess everybody's application individually. Everything is done by a case basis.
And just going back for a moment to the unregistered practitioners, what types of penalties can be imposed for breaching the TASA?
That's a good question. So we can take court action, and there are financial penalties for agents, or for unregistered agents. I don't actually have the values, but they're quite significant. I don't have the values in front of me, sorry. But yes, they are quite significant. So yeah, report them to us and we can take them to court.
Excellent. We'll send some information about those figures out afterwards as well.
Thank
so
you.
The next question is, how do I update my PII details?
If you go onto our website, I think it says your details, go in there and you can update your PI there. You will need your PI information, so your policy number, date of policy, etc. But you can do all of that through our website.
All right, excellent. And our last question is, what is accepted as work of another kind approved by the board?
Okay, so that's very much a case-by-case basis. So common ones that we see are people who have worked as a trainer or a teacher in this area. So they might have taught tax law, they might have taught GST at uni or TAFE. And we also see some people that have worked for the Australian Tax Office in particular areas. So the experience has to be directly related to that particular area, but we do look at a whole range of aspects. So, and having said that, just because you work for the tax office, if you were working in a completely irrelevant area, we wouldn't accept that. So, again, we look at it very much on a case-by-case basis, and would also ask for some references and do some checks on that as well.
Thanks, Deborah. If you could you just give some information on the final slide on how to stay in touch?
Okay, so thank you for those questions. So we're getting a bit hairy. So very good question. So if you want any more information, as I've mentioned several times today, our tpb.gov.au website has so much information on it. We've got information slides on pretty much everything. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do post recording of all our webinars on YouTube. So once this recording's been finalised, it will go up on YouTube as well. And once subscribed, you will receive notifications when we post new content. We also have a newsletter that goes out each month called PPB e-News, and you can subscribe to that at our website, which is tpb.gov.au/newsroom. So, Anna, I might hand over to you now to wrap up.
Thanks, Deborah, and thank you for providing all that useful information for us today, and thanks for everyone for attending as well. We hope you found this webinar beneficial. It's a great way for you to keep up to date, and as we've said, it can count towards your CPE. Remember, though, we won't issue certificates for attendance. If you're interested in attending another of our webinars, visit our website and go to tpb.gov.au/webinars. And once again, we thank you all for joining us, and we hope you have a lovely day.